Hi there, I'm Josh, and this is the OP-1. It's a portable synthesizer and sampler with a virtual 4-track tape machine that you can use for arranging a track. I've used the OP-1 for a ton of videos, and I think it's safe to say that I really do like it quite a bit. And its successor, the OP-1 Field, was just very recently announced. I wanted to talk about it because I thought that some of the information that was released about the OP-1 Field was interesting. Now, before I begin, I want to make it clear, I don't have any kind of pre-release access to an OP-1 Field. I'm talking about my feelings on it, having owned a current OP-1, I guess now an old OP-1, as well as what I've been able to glean from the information that they've made publicly available. But I don't have any information that is not also available to you. And I'll link down in the description Teenage Engineering's product page for the OP-1 Field. I also want to make it clear that in this video, as we discuss what the OP-1, not the Field, the current old OP-1 is, that I'm going to be speaking pretty critically of it at times. And if you love the OP-1 and you feel that it's without fault, I'm not trying to take that away from you. That criticism does come from a place of love, but I just wanted to give you that heads up. So why don't we start by talking about what the original OP-1 actually is. As I mentioned before, it's a portable music workstation with synthesis, sampling, and that 4-track tape machine workflow built in for recording and arranging your tracks. There's also fun and varied effects, like the cow, and various sequencers to help you in creating sounds and then getting them recorded the way you want. There's even a hidden helicopter game. When the OP-1 first came out, I think it was a much easier sell than it might be now. It offered a bevy of features. It was, I won't say totally unique, but a little more alone in that portable music production game, and it was coming in at under $1,000. I think that all of those together, combined with like the weird and fun stylings of it, really just, it grabbed people's attention and it made people really interested in buying and trying out the OP-1. But here's the thing, that was over a decade ago, and until the Field was announced, the OP-1 really hadn't had any changes in that decade. Well, that's not entirely true. There was a brief period of time in which it was discontinued. After it came back, they had, I think, improved the screen and also increased the price to... It was and is functionally the same device that it was 10 years ago. So the huge price increase is a little jarring, especially considering that now there's a lot of competition that in many ways really demolishes the OP-1. This is the Synthstrom Deluge, and if I had to rebuild my studio for some reason, this would probably be the first hardware instrument I'd buy. It can sequence and sync with external gear via MIDI. It allows you to add tracks and notes up until you've just filled up the RAM. A nice selection of effects, a pretty smooth sounding filter, and enough modulation options for some serious sound shaping. And since your sounds and projects are stored right here on an SD card, you've got a lot of space to work with. If I were to do a direct comparison of these two, as much as you can compare any two completely different musical devices, for me at least it would not be a contest. Even though the OP-1 beats out the Deluge in portability, the immediacy of its sampler, and the battery life, I think the Deluge just wins in every other category. The OP-1 can sync with Teenage Engineering's pocket operators using a little sync pulse, but you can't use it to sequence external MIDI gear, which I guess kind of makes sense because it wouldn't work super well with the tape workflow, but it's still a knock against it. And speaking of the tape, if you want to have more than 4 tracks in your song, you do have to overdub your recordings onto the same track, which means that when you're going into the mixer and mixing the different tracks, if you didn't already get the mix right, you're just going to have to re-record it. And on top of that, if you want to change the tempo, because you've recorded audio, not a sequence, you are either going to have to deal with the audio being repitched to make the song faster or slower, or just re-record everything. Compared to the Deluge, which, as I mentioned, you can store multiple projects on an SD card, the OP-1 can have one project active at a time. And along with that, I just want to point out, the Deluge even has an undo button, though it doesn't have a helicopter game. And here's the kicker. The Deluge, with all of its enhanced utility, is cheaper, at least new, than the OP-1. You're looking at $1,000 for a new Deluge versus $1,400 for the OP-1. And in addition, the Deluge is constantly being updated with new features, like the recent addition of wavetable synthesis. And that raises the question, if you want to get some portable music gear, why would you ever go for the OP-1? The answer, which I've come to after owning an OP-1 for 9 months, is that you don't get one for the utility. You go for it for the experience. The fun graphics, the possibly deliberate shortcomings, the device's unwillingness to communicate with any external gear, the helicopter game. It's all a part of the experience of using it, and talking about specs or hardware does in a sense feel a little bit counter to the OP-1's philosophy. You're either sold on the experience of an OP-1 and you want to get one, or you're not sold on it and you're not going to enjoy using it. I think that when you consider the necessity of a DAW for music production and how great plugins can sound, a lot of hardware gear really is a luxury, but the OP-1 takes it to the next level. It refuses to be as versatile as possible. It gives you a device that demands a quirky and strange and unique approach to music creation. But what if it had a successor? A device that could carry on the legacy of its weird quirkiness, but also give a little bit of utility to match its competitors, like the MPCs, the Electron boxes, and the Deluge. Maybe they even add a second helicopter game. Teenage Engineering have tried to do just that with the OP-1 Field, and after looking through the specs, I gotta say, The Field adds MIDI via Bluetooth, which I do think is a cool feature, especially because it makes a whole portable music production rig require at least one less cable. You can store 8 projects, and whereas on the original the tape tracks were each mono, I think that now each tape track is going to be stereo, as are all the synth engines in the sampler. There's 4 different kinds of virtual tape machine you can use now. They've spruced up the built-in mic and the built-in speaker. It has USB-C, which is nice. I think that it's cool that you can now use the cable that came with your phone for the OP-1 Field. They've added Velcro circles. They've beefed up the battery, added some memory. I think that there's a lot of stuff they've done that makes it a little bit more tempting. So why did I go meh earlier? That's because Teenage Engineering decided that adding that functionality did merit a very slight price increase from $1,400 up to at $1,000, it would be pricey but thrilling. At $1,400, the current price of a new, old, you know what I mean, OP-1, I think that it would be a really pleasant surprise. $2,000? I mean, I shudder to think about the gear that I would have to sell, not just to afford, but to, justify that purchase. There are people for whom that price is not going to be a major issue. But I do think that there are a lot of folks who, like myself, as excited as we might be about the OP-1 Field and as much as we might want one, we don't have $2,000 worth of wanting for one. Because here's the thing. The utility that they've added still does not match its competition, a lot of which can be found at much lower prices. And if it's not matching the competition, they're still trying to sell the OP-1 experience. But the problem with that is that there is a device you can get that has the OP-1 experience. That's the OP-1. And by the way, getting an OP-1 used, you're probably going to be paying about half the price of an OP-1 Field. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of competition in the portable music production space. I mean, you got your SP404 Mark IIs, you've got your Electron boxes, you got your Deluge, your Dirty Wave Mate and Polyend trackers, all of which, by the way, cost less than $1,400, most of them less than $1,000, and are coming from companies that, as far as I can tell, have a better track record with customer service than Teenage Engineering's, which is filled with horror stories of emails that go unanswered or don't get answered until after a warranty has expired, only to be told, your warranty expired, so I guess we can't help you. $2,000 for an OP-1 Field is a really premium price to pay for a device that I don't think is going to be coming with the kind of premium customer service you'd expect for something that expensive. Like I said before, I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to go out and buy an OP-1 Field, however critical I might be of the OP-1 or the OP-1 Field from what I can tell with the stuff that they've published. If you're set on it, I don't think I can convince you otherwise. And even for that price, there are people for whom the Field will be everything that they want and will be worth the money. But for me, as a fan of the OP-1, it's hard to see this massive price increase over the price of something that was already pretty expensive and not feel like Teenage Engineering is trying to leverage its fame and the quirkiness of its design to take advantage of customers. If you buy one and you enjoy it, more power to you. I think that's great, and I really do like it when people find musical devices that suit their needs. I know that I'm probably not going to buy one because even if I had the money, the experience doesn't seem so much different from the older OP-1 that it's worth that huge investment. And if the experience doesn't justify it and the Field is beat out by cheaper devices, I mean, what's the draw? Also, I don't like the color of the new knobs, and they didn't mention a helicopter game. I rest my case. Unless there's a massive, massive price cut, or Teenage Engineering decide to send me an OP-1 Field for free, please send me an OP-1 Field for free. I don't think I'm gonna see one showing up in my studio. But anyway, I wanna thank you so much for watching. I realize I haven't done a lot of kind of news reacting, sort of ranty videos. It's not a format that I intend to do a ton, but I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did like the video and you haven't already, please consider leaving a like and hitting subscribe. I'd be interested to know everyone else's thoughts on the OP-1 Field. Leave a comment sharing how you feel about it. Even if you think that I got everything wrong and you fully disagree with me, I will ask you to be polite, but please don't hesitate to say like, hey, you're totally wrong. In the video description, I linked the Teenage Engineering page about the OP-1 field. I've also put down links to videos about the OP-1 field that were made by Slow Haste, the midlife synthesist, and Jorb. I just think that it's fun having like the different viewpoints on offer. But yeah, thanks so much for sticking around, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, helicopter game.